What's up, witches? It's Claudia here, and I have some exciting news. Finally, we have created a Patreon. So you can find us at patreon.com/truecrimecovenpod. At the moment, there is only one tier. It's the familiar tier, and it's just where you can chuck us £1 just to help keep us going every month. We aim to expand on this and create new tiers and exciting content. But for now, if you'd like to support us in this way, please do go ahead. That's patreon.com/truecrimecovenpod. Enjoy the episode, guys.
What's up, witches?
Hi, I'm Claudia.
And I'm Jess.
And welcome to True Crime Coven. So, Jess, it's that time of year again. It's that time of year where we buy things for the ones we love, and then
God, yeah, it is.
The rest of the year we're horrible to them.
For a second, I was like, what the fuck is she on about? And then I was like, oh my God, yeah, it's Valentine's Day next week. Although I did find the perfect card for Aiden.
Oh yeah? Tell me more.
So it's got a lady on it, and she says, and she's got a speech bubble saying, you know, I really do love you. And she's holding a glass of wine, and then the man's holding a can of beer, and he says, is that the wine talking? And then she replies saying, no, it's me talking to the wine. And I was like, yep, I can relate to that.
See, I found the best card a few years back for Mikey.
Yeah.
And I can't top it.
Oh.
It's someone bending over and spreading their butt cheeks, and in their butthole was my face.
That is brilliant. Yeah, you're never topping that.
And of course I got it in A4.
Oh God, yeah. I suppose you only went A4 and you didn't go any bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted to make it like a cardboard cutout life-size thing. I could like put my face in it like, hello.
That would have been amazing. Especially if you could put your face in it, because anyone who came to your house could whoop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, so I can't top it, though. I have got you know the guy from Come Dine With Me who like deep throats his whisk, like puts the whole whisk in his mouth.
Yeah,
I've got that, and it says something like I love you this much or something like that. I can't remember what it says. But yeah, so I've gone pretty strong again.
Yeah,
but
I haven't got Aiden the card, but
you just said you have.
No, I found one, but I didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not very good with cards. I hate cards. But Aiden likes cards, so I might actually have to buy him one.
Yeah. No, cards are a bit pointless, but they are nice.
Yeah.
So as we release this, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Valentine's Day Eve, if you will.
Yes, yes. And so what better way to signify this than to discuss a case that very much shows what not to do when you're in a relationship.
Brilliant.
And honestly, it amazes me the amount of people who find it easier to justify so many things other than divorce.
Do you know what? I feel like this is going to be very, very similar to the one that we did last Valentine's Day.
Yeah. It is and it isn't.
Okay, yeah.
But I find that often people do awful things either for love or money. In this case, it's both.
Oh. Wonderful, the double whammy.
I know. So have you heard of Colin, Howell and Hazel Stuart?
No, names do not ring a bell.
So there is a Netflix TV show based on this story. I think it's a 4-part series. I started watching it, but
okay.
I got distracted.
Like a documentary?
Well, like a drama version of a documentary.
Oh, okay. So like based on true events.
Yeah, it's got a really famous male actor playing the lead in it, and I can't for the life of me remember his name, but it's one of those ones that you'd recognise him instantly.
Okay.
You'd be like, oh, yes, him.
Might not know his name, but know his face.
You know what, I'm even going to look him up.
Do it, why not?
It's called The Secret.
Oh, I don't even think...
It's on Netflix. Like I said, I started watching it as I was James Nesbitt is in it. Oh,
yes, he's Scottish, isn't he? Scottish or Irish? Wait, that's really bad.
I want to say Scottish.
My gut instinct was Scottish.
Oh no, it's from Northern Ireland.
Oh, is he? Oh God.
Oh,
Do
we're
you know what?
cancelled.
I said Scottish and then immediately was like,
I'm really bad with accents though.
I find as well. So really, like, Northern Irish is such a strong accent as well. Like sometimes you're like, it's hard to tell that it's Northern Irish because it's so strong, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
Like,
well, he's from Northern Ireland, which makes sense because this case does come from Northern Ireland. So,
oh wow. Okay. So yeah, you got someone good to play.
So
he's in a lot of like crime drama.
he is. It's a bit like Saran something. Saran Jones, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you would know her again if you looked her up, but she's like in all the like crime things. She always plays a cop. She's like very typecast as a cop.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have got a few trigger warnings today. Trigger warning for mention of abortion, parental death, suicide mention, sexual assault, and mention of possible rape. So it's a bit of a heavy one today.
Yeah, that is a long old list.
Yeah, so if any of these affect you in any way and you don't feel like you can listen to this case, we completely understand. We hope that you're looking after yourselves, and we'll see you next time when it's a bit more suitable for you. So let's dive right in, because it is a long one.
Okay.
So, on Sunday, May 19th, 1991, Colin Howell woke up alone. His wife Leslie was nowhere to be found. After searching the house from top to bottom and still finding no trace of her, Colin called Jim Flanagan, one of the elders at his church, and asked for his help in locating his wife. He informed him that the last he had seen of Leslie was her driving off the previous night and that he believed that she was with a man named Trevor Buchanan. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up a bit, a few years actually, to 1983. So, in 1983, we find ourselves, like I said, in Northern Ireland, in Corralane to be exact, and I really hope I'm saying that town name right. It is a town in County Londonderry. So it's here that Colin Howell and his wife Leslie Howell lived. The two married in July 1983, and soon after they started a family together, being able to afford a comfortable life for themselves and their children, as Colin was working as a dentist and Leslie a nurse. The couple were members of the local Baptist church, where Colin was very involved, being a former lay preacher and also volunteering with the church playgroup. But who is this Trevor that Colin believes his wife drove off with? Well, as I said, that was Trevor Buchanan. So you see, in 1986, Trevor Buchanan moved to the town of Corralane with his wife Hazel. Trevor was a Royal Ulster Constabulary officer, the RUC being the police force in Northern Ireland until 2001. And this took up a lot of his time, understandably. Hazel Buchanan took a job working as a nursery assistant at Mount Sandal Nursery, which is where she first met Colin and Leslie Howell, as their 3-year-old daughter attended that nursery. The Buchanans and Howells were also members of the same church, with Hazel also becoming involved in the church playgroup alongside Colin, affirming their acquaintanceship. I also didn't know if acquaintanceship was a word, and I was like, I'm going to use it anyway, but apparently it is.
Oh, I mean, I quite like it.
I like it.
Word. I'm guessing it just means like getting
it's
to
like friendship.
becoming acquaintances.
Getting to know you.
Becoming friends, but not quite friends yet.
Beautiful. So the two remained acquaintances for many years, until one day in 1990, when the two of them chaperoned the church playgroup swimming lesson. And it was whilst on this outing that they began flirting and made it obvious to one another that there was a mutual attraction between them. And it wasn't long before they acted on their feelings of attraction and slept together, committing the sin of adultery.
Wow.
One that they repeated often, soon forming a relationship based on more than just attraction and sex. Colin Howell and Hazel Buchanan began to fall for each other. Meanwhile, whilst this affair was going on, Leslie Howell was pregnant with her and Colin's 4th child. And as luck would have it, Hazel Buchanan also fell pregnant in early 1990, with Colin being the father.
Oh, scandal.
Colin had a plan. He told Hazel that he could arrange for her to get an abortion in England, because until 2019, abortions were illegal in the deeply religious country of Northern Ireland. He told Hazel how he had arranged 3 abortions for his wife Leslie some years ago, before they were married, and so he knows of a place and how to arrange the termination. Hazel was reluctant at first. Having an abortion would be another sin within their religion, but Colin pointed out that having a child out of wedlock and divorcing their partners would also cause them to be excommunicated from their church, and so Hazel agreed. I think as well he kind of framed it as like, well, I've already committed this sin, so...
Yeah.
The two then travelled to London together, with Hazel leaving a note for Trevor that read, "Going through a really hard time. Don't worry about me. Don't try to find me. I'll be back in a few days. Love you." By this time, Hazel and Trevor had been arguing so much that he wasn't surprised by her note, and so upon her return home, he was just so happy to see her that he greeted her with open arms, none the wiser. Hazel and Colin had gotten away with the abortion. Well, Hazel had. Leslie was less than impressed with her husband's disappearing act. And this is where it's hard to sort of piece together the timeline of whether Leslie knew already. Like, I don't think she knew about the pregnancy, but about whether Leslie found out before or after they went to London.
She probably had some suspicions.
Yeah, I feel like it's obviously quite a small community.
Yeah.
And she obviously knows
both
Hazel.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it would be difficult for her to suspect something at the very least.
Yeah.
Either way, she wasn't very happy with Colin leaving for a weekend, which also,
fair
at
enough.
this time, she's either heavily pregnant or has a new baby.
Yeah. So completely fair. Speaking as someone who has been heavily pregnant, if Aidan left for a whole weekend unexplained, I would be absolutely fuming whether I suspected he was cheating or not.
Yeah, you'd just be like, what are you playing at?
Yeah. Especially if it's unannounced.
Yeah, yeah. Like, very last minute.
Yeah.
And this leads us on to Trevor and Leslie finding out. As I said, this may have happened before or after the abortion. So anyway, a member of the two families' church congregation happened to spot Hazel and Colin parked beside each other at Castle Row Forest Park, and they relayed this to the church pastor. This prompted Pastor John Hansford to confront the two about their relationship with each other. Just sort of asking, like, why were you two meeting up in the woods? I feel like even if there wasn't anything going on, it just looks a bit suspicious for probably in quite a religious circle for two married people to be meeting up in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, suspicious, even if you're not part of the church. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I personally believe like men and women could be friends, but I imagine in this sort of quite religious circle, it would have looked quite odd, especially given that one of them has a heavily pregnant wife or a new child.
I mean, I have friends who are guys. I went for coffee with one of them the other day, but I wouldn't go meet him in the woods when it was dark.
I mean, I don't think it was dark.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say it was dark. I just said that they spotted them like parked next to each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, Pastor John Hansford confronted them and they admitted the indiscretions to him. Pastor Hansford told Hazel and Colin that they should cease their affair immediately and repent their sins, as well as undergo counselling, and they agreed to both.
That's kind of good, I guess.
Yeah. Would have been, had they meant it. We'll get on to that. And there's what our story ends.
And that was a nice, short, not crime episode, just a story about an affair.
Sometimes people make mistakes and they repent. Good night. No, unfortunately not, if only. Graciously, both their partners, Trevor and Leslie, agreed to forgive them, and both couples stayed together. And I kind of guess they had to, because if they divorced, they risked being kicked out of their church.
Which is so sad.
Yeah. And also,
clearly they're unhappy.
Yeah, and you lose your entire community. Also, like I said, Leslie has a very young baby at this time, so I believe at this point, yes, she did have a baby that was a few months old. So it's not really like she's in any position to be leaving Colin.
3 other children.
Yeah, she's got, I believe the eldest was 6.
Oh, wow. Okay, so she's got 4 very young children, 1 a newborn baby.
All, I mean, they say 5 and under, all 6 and under, like...
Yeah. Yeah.
She's not really in a position to leave Colin easily, I imagine. She's got a good job, but that's by the by, isn't it, really, with 4 children?
Yeah,
all your
but
money would be spent on.
your one salary isn't going to cover childcare.
Even in the
for all of
90s.
them. Yeah.
Also, it's kind of mad to me that stuff like adultery can get forgiven and abortion can be reasoned with. Not that I think they necessarily mentioned that to the pastor.
No.
But, like, divorce is completely out the question.
I know. Mental.
Like,
So, like, you'd rather force these two to stop their affair because divorce is so bad than... But you can let these unhappy marriages continue.
yeah. Like, there's clearly a reason why an affair happens.
Yeah.
So Colin also offered to meet with Trevor to apologise face-to-face in front of their pastor, to which Trevor agreed, and he actually accepted his apology with more dignity than I could ever muster.
Fair.
And apparently he never acted bitter towards Colin, despite everything. He apparently wasn't very confrontational, which is a weird quality in a police officer. But I also think probably quite a good one. To be quite easygoing is probably quite a good trait.
Yeah, to keep your cool. Like, if someone's shouting in your face, to not just see red and start hitting them. You need to be able to be like, no, I have to be the bigger person in every situation.
Yeah, and I wonder if also the fact that he was a police officer meant that he acted with grace, because he couldn't...
Not.
Like, what's he meant to do? Hit him and potentially lose his job?
Yeah, he had to... He had to be the bigger man, really, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I think Colin, like I said, was quite involved with the church. So I imagine Trevor sort of felt like in order to stay part of this community, he couldn't not forgive him.
Yeah, he had to play along with this.
Yeah, he didn't have much choice. Yeah. Really sad.
Especially with the pastor there as well, arranging it all for them.
Yeah. So, as I said, Leslie agreed to forgive Colin, but their marriage was understandably rocky after his betrayal. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to remind everyone again, it happened while she was pregnant with, giving birth to and mothering their 4th child. Okay, so we're just going to say she's absolutely fine to be a bit pissed at him.
Oh, gotcha.
So Leslie suspected that despite the fact that he had confessed to her and asked for her forgiveness, she suspected that the affair wasn't over, and that in fact Colin and Hazel were still meeting up in secret. And Leslie's father, Harry Clark, could see that his daughter was unhappy. One day, Leslie confided in him about her fears, and this prompted Harry to tell her to leave Colin if it would make her happy, despite what their church community would say. And he even gave her enough money to set up a new life, independent of her husband. Devastatingly, however, Harry Clark was found collapsed dead on May 7th, 1991, and his sudden death sent Leslie into an understandable spiral of depression. Oh. Like, she must have felt like she'd just lost the only person, like, taking care of her and on her side.
Yeah. Also, losing your dad hard enough.
Is hard regardless.
But in that situation...
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't, like, as you said, with her husband knowingly having an affair, then suspecting that he's still having it. She's like a few months after giving birth, which, I mean, you don't know her birth story. She could still be recovering from it. If she's had a
She could have had mental health problems after
or if she had a
birth
C-section,
as well.
she probably only just started to physically recover.
Never mind mentally,
never mind mentally. And she's got 4 kids to look after, 4 very young kids, and now her dad's died.
Exactly. And I can imagine that even if she did now have this money to start a new life, you're not really going to be in the right headspace to be doing that. Like, you suddenly got so much to sort out with your dad's estate and funeral plans and everything that she was probably just going to be getting through the days one at a time.
Oh my God.
She wasn't probably able to make such a huge decision to leave her husband.
Yeah.
But this wouldn't be the only tragedy to strike. As less than 2 weeks later, on May 19th, 1991, Leslie and Trevor would both be found dead, having taken their own lives in a suicide pact. So, as I said at the beginning, Colin Howell had woken up to find that his wife Leslie was still not home, and so he had rung a church elder to help him find her, explaining how he had last seen her the night before driving off with Hazel's husband, Trevor Buchanan. So the church elder, who if you remember was called Jim, he came over to Colin and Leslie's home, finding Colin literally holding the baby, whilst their other 3 children played nearby. It was then that Colin showed Jim a note that he had found from Leslie, which read, "Dear Colin, I'm just trying to go to sleep now. How long, I don't know. Thank you for your help over the past few days and for the good times in our marriage. I don't know what to say to you because I don't know how I feel, but I have seen that life goes on after a few weeks of pain. And let's face it, Colin, I am nothing in comparison to what you lost in the one you loved a while back. If I wake up in the morning, just let this be our secret. All my love, Leslie." Which is a bit of a weird note, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when she says, "I'm nothing in comparison to what you lost in the one you loved a while back," I can't really work out if she's speaking about her former self or Hazel.
I initially thought maybe she's talking about Hazel because they were forced to end their affair,
Yeah.
but they weren't allowed to end their marriage. And she's kind of being like, I'm not good enough for you. I'm sorry that you lost that relationship that was so important to you, more important than our marriage. But it also sounds like a suicide note without being a suicide note. It's like,
It sounds very unsure.
yeah, it almost sounds like she's gonna overdose, but there's a chance she could still wake up tomorrow.
Yeah,
know
which
what I
I
mean?
suppose is the risk you run with any suicide attempt.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a weird way to put it. Risk you run. We all hope people survive, but obviously the person at the time doesn't.
Yeah.
Hope they survive. But, you know, it's always the potential outcome.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of not 50-50, but it kind of is. You survive or you don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a very odd one. Normally people are quite resigned
Yeah.
when they take their own life.
They're like, I'm 100% going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm gone. Yeah. Whereas that
They get all their things in order for it to be final.
Yeah. That sounds very like, I'm not
Unsure.
sure. Yeah.
And also finding this letter, as I said, it reads like a suicide note.
Yeah.
With Leslie saying like, "Oh, I'm just trying to go to sleep now."
Yeah.
I find it really odd that Colin called a church elder rather than the police or the Royal Ulster Constabulary.
Yeah.
But then I'm also not a religious person, and perhaps this is quite normal if you're quite religious and involved with your church.
Yeah.
Like, it's a confidant, and perhaps they are your... I don't know. They are your governing body almost.
And like I guess it's almost like someone ringing their parents
Yeah.
instead
I
of
can see that.
the police, isn't it?
And I suppose you're like, oh, well, I don't really want to make a fuss yet because she's only been gone for however many hours.
Yeah, but also he knows the full story of everything that's happened. So if
Yeah,
you said
he
to
knows the headspace she's in.
Yeah, so if he said to the police, "Oh, she's driven off with this other woman's husband," like they'd be like, "Well, why is that significant?" Whereas he already knows that's significant because their partners are having an affair with each other.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So Colin asked Jim to check to see if Leslie was at her late father's house. I'm guessing they would have inherited his estate. Which is actually one of the famous cliff terrace houses in Castle Rock, known as the 12 Apostles.
Oh, wow.
Because at first it kept on saying like that he wanted him to check the 12 Apostles, and I was like, what the hell are the 12 Apostles? Apparently it's these quite famous like old houses.
Oh, okay.
And they're literally on a cliff edge. They look quite beautiful.
Oh, so that is how her dad managed to get her the money then.
I assume so.
Yeah.
Nowhere did it mention that he was particularly well off. But yeah, he had... I imagine he didn't have a mortgage. He had a pension.
Yeah.
Yada, yada.
Yeah.
So Colin wasn't able to go and check for himself because he had their 4 children to look after.
Obviously.
So Jim obliged. However, he returned a short time later saying that he hadn't seen any sign of Leslie or Trevor there. But Colin wasn't satisfied with this. And so, at 12:30 p.m, he called Jim once again and asked him again to check Leslie's late father's house. This time, he even gave him the keys to check inside. And Jim asked for a member of the RUC to come with him, and this was a man called David Green. So, around an hour later, Jim and David arrive at the 12 Apostles' property, and this time, Jim unlocks the house to check inside, with Officer David Green opting to check upstairs, whilst Jim looked around downstairs. And apparently these houses are quite small, so it wouldn't have taken long to search.
Oh, okay.
So Jim made his way to the garage at the back of the house, and when he lifted the door, he saw the Howells family car. He also saw Trevor Buchanan, who was slumped over the steering wheel in the front seat. Jim called for David Green, and so the officer came running, and upon taking in the scene before him, he checked Trevor's pulse, finding no heartbeat on the 32-year-old. Then he saw Leslie Howell laying in the back of the car in the boot, wearing headphones and surrounded by 3 family photos. She too was dead at the age of just 31 years old.
Oh, wow.
I know, so young.
Yeah. Both of them as well, so young.
I know. David Green called for more officers to attend in an official capacity. And I'm not sure if he was there in an official capacity at first or if it was just more like a small town. Like, you know, and like everyone knows each other, so you like go and grab an officer.
Yeah, did it as a friend of the church kind of thing rather than like official business.
And I love how like I'm like, oh, you know, when they do that, but I think it's because I've just finished watching Happy Valley.
Oh, so I'm like, on my to watch next.
Oh, it's so good. You really should.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you watch something, you're like, oh yeah, I know the ins and outs of everything, as if it's A real and B.
Yeah,
you actually know what you're talking about. But yeah, I know everything about the police force because I've watched a program.
Oh god, yeah.
Anyway, the IUC show up to what they're told appears to be a double suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning, as there was a strong smell of exhaust fumes. The key was in the on position in the car's ignition, and of course, both are found in a car in a garage.
Yeah.
Trevor, as I said, was in the front driver's seat, his right hand resting on the steering wheel, and he had one leg almost folded underneath him, whilst his other leg was hanging out of the car door. And Leslie, who was in the boot, had those family photos around her. She had 3 photos, actually. One was of Leslie and her mother, another was of Leslie, her brother and their father, and the last photo was one of Leslie and Colin together. She was wearing headphones, and a pipe that was connected to the car's exhaust pipe was by her head, which had caused the boot to be covered in a layer of soot. An inquest was carried out, and the medical examiner ruled that both had indeed died from carbon monoxide poisoning, and their deaths were ruled a suicide. But that is not where our episode ends this week.
Do you know what? Obviously, I guessed that it wasn't 32 minutes for Suicide Pact. Oh, but also, I don't know why, but the whole boot thing to me seems suspicious.
Yeah. The whole thing seems a bit weird, right?
And the position that he's in, surely you would just get in the car, not half in, half out the car. And for her to be in the boot after being unsure, like surely she would get in the passenger seat next to him or even the back of the car. Like you wouldn't turn around and be like, can you put me in the boot, lie these photos around me, put a pipe in to the boot and then go and kill yourself?
Yeah. Like, it's all a little bit weird.
Yeah.
However, it would be 19 years before the truth would come out.
Oh, also, sorry, just remembered.
Yeah.
The fact that the husband was so pushy about
completely
checking their house, to me is a massive red
Go check
flag.
the house, there's nothing there.
Okay, go check it.
Are you
again.
sure? Just have a look.
Yeah. Oh, here are the keys so you can go and look inside this time.
I did see one source state that he told them to check the garage.
Really?
But I don't know if that was true because I think so. I only watched, like I said, half the first episode of the series, but I did notice some of the articles almost described it frame by frame from the series, which could be because the series did a really good job, or it could be that they sort of took the series as gospel.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm not 100% sure.
Certain details I'm not happy to take as completely true.
Yeah.
So, what happened in those 19 years? Well, following his wife Leslie's death, Colin Howell received £400,000 from a mixture of her will, life insurance, an endowment payout, and money from her late father's estate, which was a bit handy because his dental practice was in a bit of financial difficulty.
Oh, was it now? And that's very convenient that she comes into money and then...
And then,
winds up dead.
However, Colin denies that he received this sum of money, stating it was more like £212,000.
Okay, so what happened to like the other 200?
I mean, even if like you got taxed that much, which I don't think you would,
no.
But either way, it's a lot of money.
Oh God, yeah.
So I looked up, and even today, you could buy a 3 or 4 bed house for about £210,000 in Coleraine. So that's not a small sum of money now, never mind then. So even if you did only get 200,000, like I'll take it if he doesn't want it.
Also, sure, you can't complain about, like, I would take £1,000. Do you know what I mean?
Your partner's died. Like, I understand there's a lot of financial difficulties that people find themselves in after partners die because it's expensive to pay for funerals. And I understand that, you know, it's a stressful time, but most people, aside from those things, aren't really that worried about money after someone's died because they're mourning.
No. Yeah. Also,
especially when they've killed
kids,
themselves because of you.
Give it to the kids.
Yeah. So we know for sure that Colin was having financial difficulties, even if we don't know the exact amount that he inherited. So prior to Leslie's death, he actually asked a friend for a loan of £10,000, which the friend obliged, and he was able to pay this loan off within 6 months after Leslie's death. Which, to put some context on this, I myself, full disclosure, just took out a loan for £5,000 to get my eyes lasered. And I'm currently 29 years old, and I'm going to be paying that loan off until I'm 35 years old. So paying off a 10k loan in 6 months, it's no small feat.
Yeah.
Even without interest, I worked it out, and it's about £1,666 a month to pay back.
Well, you can almost guarantee that he was doing some kind of payment plan and then got that large sum of money and just paid it off.
Yeah, because I'm not being funny. I sometimes only get paid about $1,700 a month.
Yeah.
So that's like paying my whole paycheck every month.
On a loan. Yeah. Yeah.
So just a bit of information. I'm definitely not at all bitter about our country's economy. So Colin has also stated that he had financial worries at the time of Leslie's death, but he insisted that he wasn't on the verge of bankruptcy, but rather that the NHS owed him money, I think from NHS patients at the dentist surgery. Because obviously you treat the patients and then the NHS reimburses you, I believe.
Yeah.
And he'd also just bought a new home and a new business, so I think maybe he'd just started up his own dental practice.
Oh, okay.
He also made a good point that he didn't think life insurance would pay out because Leslie's death was ruled to be a suicide. And to be fair to him, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
I wonder why they did pay out, to be honest, because I think most life insurance policies actually have that as a clause, don't they? Like, they don't pay out in suicide.
I mean, I have life insurance. I could not tell you.
I mean, I think they should pay out in suicide.
Yeah. I think they should, especially because
it's still a devastating thing, and I don't think most people are getting like. But then I suppose the argument is you could get life insurance just before you kill yourself.
Yeah. To
secure your family's financial future. But yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't know.
I don't know. It's a grey area. But yeah, to be fair to him, I can see why he didn't bank on getting that money.
Yeah.
Anyway, after Leslie's and Trevor's deaths, Colin and Hazel didn't stay together anyway, breaking up 5 years later in 1996.
Oh, so it's fine for them to break up, but...
They weren't married, in all fairness.
Okay, that makes it all okay then.
Yeah. Can I just say, this is still like sex before marriage as well?
Yeah.
Which I know is like definitely the lesser sin. I keep saying sin. I think none of these things are sins. I don't really believe in sins. I believe in being a good person. But none of these things are sins per se. I mean, obviously adultery isn't great, but sex before marriage I'm obviously fine with and all that. But isn't that technically another sin? Yeah,
like how are you fine with breaking some of these but not divorce?
This is one of the main problems I have with religion, and I mean no disrespect to anyone listening who's religious. My main thing is that you know, if something gives you hope and comfort and just keeps you going every day, then that's completely fine. And who am I to say absolutely anything on that?
Yeah.
But I get a little bit jaded when it comes to organised religion sometimes, because I find that, and this isn't necessarily a problem with religion more than certain people within it, that they then like cherry pick what they want to follow. And I think that, you know, it's not everyone. So Colin married an American woman who was called, so this is the thing, it's spelt Kyle. So I would assume Carl Jorgensen.
See, I would say,
but is it Kylie?
Or Kylie? Yeah, Kylie.
So Kyle is like how you spell Kyle, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, I am not sure. I'm going to call them Kylie Jorgensen.
Yeah.
Anyway, he married this woman in 1997, whom he met at a Christian singles night that he organised at his own house. And he then became a stepfather to her 2 children. They went on to have... This is the thing as well. She was divorced, but that's... I mean, honestly, there's just so many things here that I'm like, I don't understand. Also, she was a divorced woman, which...
A Christian singles night, mate. Wild night.
I know. And I just want to make it clear, if anyone's wondering, when we keep saying, like, this is sin, this is sin, we're not against divorce, we're not against abortion, we're not against... having sex outside of wedlock. We are against adultery. Yeah. But I also don't think it's a sin. I just think it's something that's not great to do, but it's not nice to do to people. But I also know that mistakes happen.
Oh, gotcha.
You said gotcha as if you've done it then.
oh, no. I'm just, covering all bases. But keep the big guy happy.
But yeah, so he became a stepfather to her 2 children. They then went on to have 3 more children together, meaning that between the 2 of them, they had 9 children in total.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Busy, right?
I mean, having one's enough.
You don't want another 8?
Fuck no.
Hazel also remarried in 2005. Funnily enough, she went for another police officer, so I guess she has a type. She married David Stuart, becoming Hazel Stuart, like I referred to at the beginning of the episode.
Okay, yeah.
Hazel has 2 children who were fathered by her late husband, Trevor Buchanan, and they're all grown up.
Okay, so she didn't have any more kids.
No.
Sensible woman.
So, as I said, and what you're all really here for, the deaths of Leslie Howell and Trevor Buchanan were not as they seemed. And the truth always comes out in the end. It really, really does. Mm. So, sadly, in May of 2007, Matthew Howell, who was Colin and Leslie's eldest son, he died whilst on placement in Russia as part of his undergraduate language course. The 22-year-old lost his grip on a stairwell and fell 4 floors, around 40 feet, and died instantly.
Lost his grip on a stairwell?
Yeah, I found that weird too.
Yeah. But when you said lost his grip, my head went, rock climbing. And then he said, on a stairwell.
I don't know if maybe it was like an outdoor stairwell. But he fell 40 foot. And he died instantly.
Unless... The only way I can think it possible is if, it was a faulty railing kind of thing. And he fell, fell through the railing. I could not get those words out. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, understandably, this affected Colin Howell in a huge way.
Yeah.
He described Matthew as a role model son.
Aww.
But it also prompted something completely unexpected. Though perhaps not to everyone listening. Now, remember, Colin is a very religious man. And so when he suddenly and tragically lost his eldest son, he sort of thought that it was a punishment from God. And that God had punished him through his son.
Okay.
So Colin called the church elders on January 29th, 2009 and asked them to visit him at his home. The elders braced themselves for another confession, as over the years Colin had confessed about cheating on his wife many times throughout their marriage.
His new wife?
Yep.
He sounds like a top guy.
Yeah, also, funnily enough, and I'm not just here to just shame these two people, though I don't think either of them are brilliant people. I'm, not just here to like shame them and be like scandalous with it.
Yeah.
But I think Hazel also met her second husband, her current husband, while she was seeing someone else.
Oh.
So,
I mean,
there's patterns.
healthy relationships.
Yeah. But no, this time Colin wasn't confessing to another affair. He had something else to confess. In fact, he had 3 things to confess.
Ooh.
So the first was that he had lost hundreds of thousands of pounds by investing it in a scam. He had been told he was investing it in a company in the Philippines that claimed it knew the location of millions of pounds worth of gold buried by the Japanese at the end of World War II. I know. Like, for real, this is what he put his money into.
Nowadays, it is a lot easier to be scammed. Because
it is and it isn't.
Because people message you on WhatsApp. But still, there are some very, very easy telltale signs of if it's a scam.
It is and it isn't. So I almost got scammed the other day with gig tickets, and they were really good at it because I said that I wanted to find some tickets, and they said, hey, I've got some. And I kind of looked at their profile and was like, you don't really look like someone who listens to the band. But hey, who am I to judge? And maybe you are someone who's like a scalper and like I shouldn't buy from you, but at the same time, like it's sold out. So, yeah. And they weren't selling from like, they weren't upselling. And they were quite convincing, like I said, because they said, if you send me, so it was £20 for a ticket. They're like, if you send me 10, I'll then send you the tickets, and then you can send me the other 10 once you receive them. And I was like, okay. And then, so I was like, that sounds pretty legit.
Yeah. And
then I went to send them the money, and they told me to do it to their Twitter username, which was like a normal name.
Yeah.
And then I got a thing from the bank being like, these account details don't match. So I said like, it says your account details don't match. And they're like, oh, sorry, I meant this name, and gave me a completely different name. So like the first name was quite a Western name. The second name sounded maybe Filipino.
Okay.
And I was a bit like, this seems fishy. And they were like, no, it's not. Please just send me the money. Please, please. And I was like...
It's then when they start begging that you're like...
Yeah, so I like screenshot their profile and like, tweeted about them being a scammer and then reported it. But yeah, like that completely. I can see how someone can get scammed like that because I was so close to sending the money.
Yeah.
But... Dude, they said that they knew where millions of pounds worth of gold was buried by the Japanese during World War II.
Really?
Like, why would they share that with you?
Yeah.
Like, if they know where it's buried, they're just going to dig it up.
Yeah, why do they need your money? Like,
I suppose maybe for, like, equipment to dig it up, but, like, just no. Honestly, he might as well... have gotten an email from someone who said there were a Nigerian prince who needed money.
That's like the classic one, isn't it?
So Colin saw this loss of money as a punishment from God. Personally, I just see it as a natural outcome from being a fucking idiot.
Agreed.
But due to losing all of this money, Colin now owed a lot of money to patients and to the revenue. So next he told the elders that he had been... So this is his second confession. They get worse as they go along.
I assume.
Yeah. So next, he told the elders that he had been molesting his dental patients whilst they were under sedation at his practice. And yes, Jess, that is the right face to make.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel like you should have screenshotted that and that could have been the photo this week.
Honestly, the jaw drop. So he'd actually been doing this for 10 years.
When you said that they got worse, like obviously I knew the last one was
didn't expect
murder,
a jump.
but I did not expect the jump from falling for fraud and losing a load of money to molesting patients.
Oh, yeah. So from 1998 to 2008, and he said that he just couldn't help himself when it came to his sexual urges. And I have one thing to say. You know what, Colin? Try harder. Or get help. There are literally groups for sexual addictions.
Yeah. Get your balls cut off. That'll do it.
Like, you can...
We do it to animals, anything. We should do it to humans if they can't control their urges.
Oh, just like you can do anything to help yourself other than repeatedly molest people and have affairs. Amazingly, by the way, his wife, Kylie, was present at the table during all these confessions. She was actually reciting Bible verses. Apparently, it was Kylie who called in the church elders and told Colin to confess after he admitted to renewing an affair after Matthew's death the previous year. She had kicked him out of their home just before Christmas in 2008. Okay. She had been aware of a few things. But I think she'd, agreed to keep secrets, but after he had betrayed her again, I think it was just the final straw. Lastly, Colin took a deep breath, and then he began to tell the church elders, who must have been completely shell-shocked at this point.
I mean, I'm completely shell-shocked.
Oh yeah.
And I know where this is going. Yeah.
So he told them that he had killed his wife Leslie and Hazel's husband Trevor Buchanan in 1991, and he had made it look like a suicide pact, all with the help of Hazel. And as I said, Kylie knew about things. Oh, that was cute.
Yes, I yawned as she tried to grab the microphone.
So, as I said, Kylie knew about these things. She'd actually known about the double murder since September 1998.
Oh, wow.
But she had agreed to keep it secret for the sake of their children. Basically, Colin had reasoned with her that it had already been a secret for 7 years. So what would some more time matter, and they could sort their kids out. So this is how the horrific double murder went down. Colin and Hazel hatched the plan together in the woods one day. The same woods where they had been seen by a member of the church before. So I think this might be where they used to go together to meet up.
Yeah.
Colin gave Hazel some temazepam, and he told her to crush the tablets up and put them in Trevor's dinner on the night of May 18th. He needed Trevor to be unconscious so he could move him into position, and because Trevor was a large and fit RUC officer with a firearm.
Yeah.
He then told Hazel that once Trevor was out, he needed her to open her garage door for him and have Trevor's car moved out of the way. He would also need her to cover for him after the fact. Colin prepared for May 18th too. He fashioned a baby bottle to fit snugly over the car's exhaust pipe by cutting the rubber top bit. So it kind of suctioned.
Yeah.
So he cut the teat and made it so it had an airtight seal.
Yeah.
Now, Colin had been drugging Leslie for a while now. He'd been doing this in order to sneak out to meet up with Hazel. And so on May 18th, he was more than happy to do this again.
Poor Leslie getting drugged frequently by her husband. No wonder.
Honestly.
I cannot imagine the mental state of this woman.
It's so sad that she didn't get to get away from him.
Yeah.
It's just...
Even if this had gone the other way and she had committed suicide, I could see why.
Oh, completely.
Although to me, I mean, I guess it could be that bad, but I'm not sure she would have been driven to it because of her kids.
Yeah, I feel like her kids would have kept her going. Yeah. And her dad had already given her an out.
Yeah.
She just had to kind of, accept the backlash from the community.
I think she
which again is mad that she would get it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I got hiccups.
So, yeah, Colin was more than happy to drug Leslie again. However, he didn't need to this time. Leslie was already low due to her father's death less than 2 weeks earlier. So while she was napping on the sofa, he connected the adapted baby bottle to the car exhaust, attached a hose pipe to that, and led it into the living room. He then placed the hose pipe next to Leslie's face as she slept and slipped back out to the garage to start the car. To keep the hose pipe by Leslie's face and for the most efficient result, he pulled the duvet over Leslie's head with the hose pipe underneath. Colin then watched from outside the living room through the partially opened door. But as the fumes blew on Leslie's face, she began to stir. And so Colin rushed in and held the duvet over Leslie's face with the hose pipe still underneath as well. Leslie fought back and called out for her eldest son, Matthew, who was 6 years old at the time. But it was all in vain, and soon Leslie was rendered dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. And I always kind of thought it took a while to die from carbon monoxide poisoning, But actually, in high concentrations, carbon monoxide can kill you in less than 5 minutes, which does make sense because I think it attaches to your hemoglobin in the same way oxygen does.
Instead of oxygen going around your body,
it's carbon monoxide, which just basically suffocates you.
Yeah. And
cause you to become
I
hypoxic.
learned today that apparently, I think I probably did know this, but relearned it today, that it takes like a minute for your blood to travel around your entire body.
Yeah.
So, 5 minutes.
You're going to have run out of all the remaining oxygen
and just
go into anaerobic respiration and
brain function stops, heart function stops.
Organs shut down.
That's horrible. Oh, the fact that she called out for her 6-year-old and not her husband's shows that she knew it was her husband.
Yeah, and also the fact that she called out for her 6-year-old also shows that that's kind of is who she had left. She only had her kids left.
Oh my God, that makes me want to cry.
Oh, it's so sad. Colin then dressed Leslie's lifeless body before carrying her into the garage. I think she was in her pyjamas, when you're really sad and you don't want to get dressed.
Yeah, I'm in pyjamas right now. Not that I'm sad, but
just
just tired.
He then placed her in the boot of their family car. Then he covered her body with a sheet and placed a bike on top of her. And I'm assuming this is in case he got stopped by the RUC. He decided to bring Leslie's cassette player and 3 family photos too, to make it look more like a suicide by a woman distraught over her broken family and her father's death. Colin also made sure to pack up the baby bottle / hosepipe homemade contraption and bring it to the Buchanan's home, where Hazel was waiting to help him with the next step of their plan, as Colin had alerted her with a phone call to say he was finished with Leslie and was on his way over.
Can I just say in all of this, has he just left those kids at home as well?
You know, that's a very good point. And I do not know. It was a bit overshadowed in my research.
So I think the only reason I'm thinking of that is because
said like a true mum.
Yeah, no, because I'm a mum now. Like, I could not imagine leaving.
I want to say no, but then also I want to say they were obviously home because she called out for Matthew.
Yeah, but also who do you get to come round and babysit?
Yeah.
Like, hang on,
what are you doing tonight?
Murder my wife. Can you look after the kids?
But also, I don't know if they had any family. Well, I know Leslie had a brother.
Yeah, maybe they were with him for the night.
I honestly don't know. So when Colin arrived at Hazel and Trevor's home, he checked with her that Trevor was definitely asleep. Remember, he's a bit scared of him.
Yeah.
And after she confirmed that he was, Colin attached his contraption to the car exhaust once again and made his way towards the master bedroom. Once again, he placed the end of the hose next to Trevor's face, then returned to the garage to turn the car on. Once Trevor was dead, Colin lifted the bike and sheet off of Leslie, placed Trevor's body on top of hers, then covered them both up with the sheet and the bicycle once again. Colin then drove the 2 bodies to the 12 Apostles and reversed the car into Leslie's father's garage. Whilst wearing surgical gloves so as to cover his tracks, Colin took Trevor from the boot of the car and positioned him in the driver's seat, making it seem as though he was the one to start the car. Colin then arranged the 3 photos around Leslie's body and put her headphones over her ears with them playing her favourite gospel music. Finally, Colin set up a vacuum hose to the exhaust pipe this time, closing it in the boot door to secure its place. Finally, he turned the car on. He then threw the sheets and gloves into a bin bag and cycled home, which would have taken around 40 minutes, I believe. Which also, I have to say, it didn't occur to me that there was another use for the bike until it said that he cycled home.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to give him any credit, but that's actually quite smart.
Yeah,
quite smart.
I mean, if it's a 40-minute cycle, it's a long old walk.
When Colin arrived home, he burned all the evidence and called Hazel to ensure she had cut up and burned the hose pipe / baby bottle contraption, like he had told her to, and also to, of course, inform her that the murders were complete. So yeah, that's what really went down on the evening of May 18th, 1991. And, then the next day he would call up the church elder, Jim, and insist that he check, blah, 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 blah.
That's so mental.
Yeah.
Like,
And of course now Colin's insistence that the church elder Jim check Leslie's late father's home not once but twice makes a lot more sense.
Oh, yeah.
As does that weird note left by Leslie, quote unquote. It still seems weird because it's just a weird thing to write, in my opinion, but it makes more sense now.
Yeah.
And by the way, experts agree that there were discrepancies in the wording and phrasing of the note. Now, the police have been highly criticised for ruling the murders as a double suicide, as many have noticed things that obviously point to foul play. So, we'll go through just a few of them. First of all, Colin's insistence that people needed to look for Leslie and Trevor at Leslie's father's house was weird, like we said.
Yeah.
But next was the position of the driver's seat. So, as you said, it kind of seems weird how Trevor was.
Yeah.
And there's a reason he was like this. So Trevor, like we said, was a big man. He was a tall man, taller than Colin. However, the driver's seat he was found dead in was positioned much too close to the steering wheel for him to have driven like that comfortably. Almost as if it was positioned for a shorter person
Like Colin.
to have been driving the car. Yeah, perhaps a shorter man, more like Colin's height. And he just obviously hadn't accounted for, pushing the seat back. So
yeah.
Trevor would have actually been able to drive the car. Like, it's so difficult to drive a car if you're way too close.
Yeah. Just
as difficult as it is if you can't reach.
Put it all the way back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you could have got, it would have been very plausible to get there and put the seat all the way back.
Yeah, exactly.
And relax a little bit, yeah.
Additionally, Trevor was actually injured. So post-mortem photos showed injuries to both Trevor's nose and mouth, as well as Trevor seeming to have blood coming from the back of his head. And people raised these injuries at Trevor's wake. His own dad, Jim, another Jim, being one of the people to mention the cuts. But these injuries were explained away by a minor scuffle that Colin said had occurred prior to his death.
But Colin was absolutely fine.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think Colin had a mark. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But the RUC kind of accepted this, kind of being like, well, it makes sense. You were having an affair with his wife.
Yeah.
But they just accepted it way too readily. And yeah, Colin used this scuffle as an excuse as to why he had a gash on his forehead. In a way, it was true, as he had actually sustained this injury from Trevor, struggling for his life. So as he was poisoning him in the bedroom, Trevor woke up much like Leslie did.
Yeah.
And Colin had to restrain him, and this is how the injuries were sustained.
Okay.
Regardless of his injuries, Trevor's father, Jim, did actually believe that his son had taken his own life, and he cradled him in his arms at Trevor's wake as he asked, "Why did you do it, son? You could have come to me."
Oh, that's so sad.
You know, it makes me want to cry.
Also, surely Leslie had some injuries if she fought back.
Not that I saw reported.
Okay.
I'm guessing she needed less subduing. And even more heartbreakingly, Jim actually died believing that his son took his own life.
Oh.
I'm not really sure what's worse though. Like, either way, you lose a child, and that's something no one should have to experience. But I'm not sure what's worse to believe.
I think sometimes the suicide as a parent, you will always think that, like, oh, if they'd have just come to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas the murder, it's not so
But
much.
then-
You don't feel so much of the guilt.
I guess. I mean,
them-
both are just horrific, aren't
Yeah.
they? Both are like nightmare scenarios.
I mean, yeah, no parent should ever have to outlive their child.
No, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
People also tried to inform the RUC that Colin had been drugging Leslie with temazepam. She'd even told her friends that she was sure he was doing this to her.
Oh,
But
wow.
these claims were not investigated, and neither was the claim that Colin had recently tried to harm/kill Leslie by dropping an electrical cable into her bathtub.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really not a great person.
Wow.
And these are just some, like I said, just some of the reasons that the police investigation has been criticised. I think it's fairly obvious that they took the scene at face value and didn't do much investigation.
It does make me think as well, like you said earlier, it's a tight-knit community. He's a highly respected member of the church. If the police
I find it weird that Trevor is a RUC officer. Like, normally people look after their own, rightly or wrongly so, and you know, you'd think that they would investigate it more
because
thoroughly because of it, but for some reason, no.
Yeah, that's so weird.
It is. It's really weird. Now, of course, when Colin confessed everything, he dropped his ex-lover Hazel right in it too.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah, and told of her willingness, awareness, and involvement in the plan. Hazel has since stated that she was coerced into it by Colin, and I do believe he's really manipulative, but I don't think she can. That's not going to fly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you could have done something.
Yeah, like, people can be really manipulative, and I understand that, but I just feel like either way, she could have at least confessed sooner. So it took 19 years to confess, and they broke up 5 years after the murders.
Yeah.
Like, she could have, even if she can say that he manipulated her and coerced her into the whole thing, which is a bit of a funny argument in itself.
Yeah.
But, you know, things do happen like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, his spell was surely broken on you in 1996, so you could have confessed them.
Yeah, like, you had your opportunity.
Yeah. She's also stated that Colin drugged her many times and had sex with her throughout their relationship whilst she was drugged. So, but there are conflicting reasons as to why. There's some sources that state that he drugged her and had sex with her against her will, i.e., you know, he raped her.
Yeah.
And some state that she asked him to drug her or give her drugs to have sex with him because of her guilt after everything.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's true. I don't really believe what comes out of either of their mouths. Regardless, both Colin and Hazel were charged with the murders of their former partners in February 2009, to which both pled not guilty.
Of course.
But, like, how did Colin plead not guilty?
He's just confessed it.
Honestly, I don't get it.
It's like, here's this murder that I committed, but I'm not guilty.
But I didn't do it.
It
Very
wasn't
weird.
me.
However, on November 18th, 2010, just days before his trial was due to begin at Belfast Crown Court, Colin Howell changed his plea to guilty. Which is, you know, also this is the thing, like, when you plead not guilty, you put everyone through a trial, and that's just so much extra pain to put them all through. Like, for goodness sake,
Also,
just
especially
do
when
one
they
good thing in
had
your life.
all of that evidence against him and his
Honestly.
confession. Like, what did he think was going to happen?
Honestly, you probably thought he'd get away with it again.
Asshole.
So he changed his plea to guilty, and on December 3rd, 2010, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 21 years. On May 17th, 2011, Colin Howell also pled guilty to the sexual assault of female patients in his surgery over a span of 10 years. And there were so many conflicting reports about the number of people and the amount of times. So I just gotta
We'll
say,
just skim over that it happened. It's horrible.
yeah, it's disgusting. So for this, he was stripped of his NHS pension, and he had 5.5 years added to his sentence. Once again, a very small sentence for a sexual assault crime. And I hope you can hear my eyes rolling.
Yeah.
Colin Howell will be at least 77 years old when he is eligible for a release from prison, which is still too young, in my opinion. You know how me and Jess feel. Like,
Yeah.
77 isn't that old.
Yeah. Life should mean life, I think.
Yeah. And bear in mind, he also had 19 years free from committing the murders to...
Where he got
19 years-
remarried, had 3 more kids. Sexually
Had multiple
assaulted-
affairs, sexually assaulted people.
More people.
As for Hazel Stuart, well, she kept her plea of not guilty. And on February 7th, 2011, her jury of 9 men and 3 women was sworn in at Colin Crown Court. And on March 2nd, 2011, the judge sent the jury away to deliberate. It took them all of 2 hours before they returned with the verdict of guilty for Hazel.
Good.
On March 16th, 2011, Hazel Stuart was sentenced to serve a minimum of 18 years in Hyde Bank Prison in Belfast. She will be 66 when she is eligible for release in 2029.
That's not a long time.
No, 66 is like, that's absolutely a fine age. Like, you could
Yeah.
live another, 30 34 years, let's say. I mean, she probably won't live to 100, but she could.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
Even if she lives to 80, it's another 14 years. Bear in mind the 19 she was running about doing free. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, since his conviction, Colin's second wife, let's call her Kylie, has left him and flown back to America, with only one of his children staying in contact with him. And this is, I believe her name's Lisa, and she thinks that he's genuinely remorseful for his actions. Which, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? It's not a nice position to be in either way.
Because I wonder if her mum is Leslie.
Yeah.
So your dad murders your mum. That does put you in an awkward position.
I think she knows he did it, but she thinks he's remorseful. And honestly, it's got to be hard, hasn't it?
Remorseful once they're caught, don't they?
Yeah, but I don't envy her in any way. You know, it's got to be a very difficult thing. You've lost both your parents effectively.
Oh God, yeah.
In contrast, both of Hazel's children and her second husband David have stood by her since her past came out. They refuse to accept the part she played in the murder of her late husband and her ex-lover's wife. And I think the children even said, like, we lost dad, and this just feels like losing mum as well.
Yeah, I can see that, but surely they must know the part she played in it still.
I think it's easier to pretend that she was manipulated into it.
Yeah,
and sort of like kid yourself, isn't it?
She was.
Yeah, I think she was in part, but I feel like she could have backed out. She could have contacted someone whilst they were planning it. She could have come clean. Like, obviously, if she was sexually assaulted by Colin, I feel sorry for her for that.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for her being manipulated. That kind of shows it's an abusive relationship. But I don't feel sorry enough for her that I think she shouldn't be in prison.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, at the end of the day, she's not the victim, really.
Also, a jury found her guilty. So
yeah,
there must have been something that came out in that trial for those 12 people to turn around and say no.
I mean, it was planned. They hadn't. It's not like, you know, he sprung it on her or anything. It was all planned.
And
she could have
had to drug him.
Alerted. Yeah, she could have alerted the authorities at any point.
She could have not drugged him and said, "This is the plan.
Could you get people around here to ambush him?"
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose Leslie, unfortunately, would have still been dead.
But
she could have done any number of things.
Yeah.
And I understand it's difficult when you're being manipulated and, you know, dare I say, abused, if that's what was going on with her.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I buy it. And that concludes today's case of what not to do in a relationship.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. But a bit of everything in there. Bit of cheating, bit of murdering.
Yeah. And basically just all round devastation. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Colin says he's no longer a monster. But that he was. And apparently when he pled guilty to each sexual assault of his patients at the surgery, he said guilty and I'm sorry and looked at them, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't really make up for it though, does it?
Yeah. I mean,
because you did it for 10 years as well. It's not like a one-off. And like, yeah, if you've got a sex addiction, you know, addictions are real, but you could have got help.
I always think, like, are you sorry or are you sorry you got caught?
Yeah, because there was a huge difference.
Yeah. So, Orla's now wide awake, aren't you?
I can see that, little monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. You gonna say hey to everybody?
She's tired though.
Yeah, that was a big yawn. You gonna say hi? No. She hid in her blanket.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Yeah, you've made yourself cough now. Stupid. Stupid baby. Aren't you?
Mash for brains. What's in there? Mashed potato?
We don't have mashed potato in this house, do we?
Oh, poor kid's never going to get mashed potato.
I mean, I will make her mashed potato.
It's a very easy thing to make a baby.
Yeah, it is.
And you can freeze it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not
and then microwave
I'm not that against potato that I just don't.
But honestly, you could freeze mashed potato and then you can just heat it up whenever.
Yeah. Easy squeezy.
But yeah,
we got very distracted then, didn't we?
Yeah.
Your little distraction.
So, yeah, it's a pretty grim case this week. I am sorry, everyone.
Yeah, no, it is.
I just can't believe they got away with it for so long. And
19 years.
Yeah, and I'm just really surprised that the police didn't investigate the death of one of their own a bit more.
Yeah, especially when he had obvious injuries.
Yeah, but I guess it is easily explained away by them getting in a scuffle because, yeah, I think I'd get in a scuffle with someone who was having an affair with my partner.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that they weren't like, Colin would have come off worse.
You'd think as well.
Yeah. But then I guess if he was being the bigger person each time.
Yeah. So I guess there's not much else for us to say other than obviously enjoy Valentine's Day. Be good to your partner. If you don't want to be with your partner, don't have affairs. Just leave them.
Divorce.
It's so much easier.
Yeah. I know it seems like a lot of paperwork, but that's a lot better than murder and don't eat the microphone.
Her cardigan's really cute.
It is, isn't it? I didn't buy it.
Who did?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Fair. And other than that, we just want to say, stay spooky. Hey guys, if you have a ghost story or a case suggestion, please email us truecrimecovenpod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Twitter @truecrimecoven or on Instagram and Facebook where we are @truecrimecovenpod.
Also, it would mean the absolute world to us if you could rate us wherever you're listening to this right now, be it Spotify, Apple Music, or if you're on YouTube, give us a little thumbs up, click that bell, get notifications every time we post.
Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts from.
Make these two witches smile. Thanks, witches!